Hello and welcome to the Deece Plus podcast. My name is William, and most of you know that I was homeschooled as a child. But what you may not know is when I was in kindergarten, I went to a small private school. In this small private school, I convinced all of my classmates that my imaginary friends were real. And now I'm going to let Tyler introduce himself.
That's like not even that interesting.
What are you talking about? That's way interesting. It's way more interesting than the Walmart thing.
Look, you just tricked a bunch of dumb kids.
Yeah.
It's not hard to trick a bunch of like young dumb kids.
Yeah.
It kind of is when you're also a young dumb kid.
That's true.
Not really.
And I was born in December, so I was like younger than all of them.
I'm not impressed.
Wow.
Are you?
And
Are you very
Poker
impressed?
likes it in chat, so. So that was Tyler. He's not impressed. Ian, would you like to introduce yourself?
My name's Ian Klein. I like to play Magic the Gathering.
Are you impressed? Come on, give me the real.
That's right. On a scale of 1 to 4, how impressed are you?
Like
Standard
a 2.
playable?
Like a
Cyber
2.
only.
In a specific deck that doesn't exist yet.
Okay. And as you might notice, we are missing member number 4 of the Deece Plus podcast. Aaron could not be with us tonight, so he will not be here for the green video or the Artifact or Land video, but he will be with us tomorrow for the Super Gold video. All right. Wow, we're going to start off with a card I cannot pronounce. Affectionate Indrik?
Indrik, I think.
Indrik. I was told that this is a real animal, but I'm not 100% sure. It is a 6-mana creature. It is 5 and a green for a beast. It's a 4/4, and it says when affectionate Indrik. Okay, so just like it's spelled. Enters the battlefield. You may have it fight target creature you don't control. So we've seen this card before, right?
Yeah, it's Stomberwald Sag from Eldritch Moon.
It looks like Eldritch Moon.
Yeah, but that card that card costs 1 less mana, which is better. But it had 3 toughness, which was kind of annoying because there were a decent amount of like 3/4s and 3/3s, so like you couldn't eat like quote unquote the 3/3s and stuff.
Right.
Where this can. And Stomberwald Stag was really good in that format.
For sure.
Quite very first pickable. Now this card's 6 mana, which 6 mana is like in terms of limited 6 mana and 5 mana, that is a real difference.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But this having a 4th toughness, and as we've seen and noted multiple times in this format, the creatures don't look that big. Like they look like they kind of cap out at 3 power for the most part.
Yep.
Like 2 and 3 power, decent amount of 1/1s. Like even the mentor guys are all like around 3 power. That even the bigger ones.
Yeah.
So this card is going to be a 4/4 like Ravenous Chupacabra a decent amount of the time, which is very strong.
Yep. Very, very strong.
It's also a May. So the way I think this works, which I'm actually not 100% sure on, but this is how it worked with Stomberwald Stag, was it enters, you choose a target, and then your opponent has to respond. So if they have a pump spell, they can choose to pump spell their thing, but then you can choose not to fight if you don't want to.
Yeah, that's how
so they
Stomberwald Stag working, and it has the same exact wording, I do believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
so they can't blow you out with like fight your guy, and you're like in response pump my guy, so your guy just dies.
Yeah.
So they either have to let their guy die or waste a pump spell for like nothing, and you still just get a 4/4, which is huge in this format.
Yep.
So this card's quite good.
I would actually argue that this might be better than Somberwald just because of the 4 toughness, and it's also easier. It's more easily splashable. Because it's only 1 green. So in your Golgari decks, if you want to be only a light splash of green, or if you want to play like Sultai, if you want to go, Dimir and just have this as like a big dude and a rule spell as your top curve, you can do that as well, which I think is really sweet.
Yeah.
This does seem like a super cool splash in a Dimir deck, like as a top end card.
Yep.
That's very much what they want to do.
Yeah, especially if you're light on creatures, which I can see a Dimir deck having a problem with having just like a high density of effective creatures. This kind of is a removal spell and a creature at the same time, and they're gonna get to the late game, so they're not gonna be worried about it being 6 mana.
Yeah, I have this as like a 3.5 probably.
That is
Yep.
exactly where I have it.
Same here.
All right, on to the next card. Green cards and I are not going to get along in this set. Arbitorium Elemental?
Arboretum. I think Arboretum.
Arboretum?
I think it's Arboretum.
Or Arboretum?
Arboretum. Arboretum.
I'm pretty sure I'm just gonna call this thing a giant hexproof thing every time I see it, and not its actual name.
Yeah, I think it's just gonna be like the big elemental guy.
Big dumb thing.
The convoking hexproof guy.
So
Vinemare's father.
Big dumb thing costs 7 green for an elemental. It's an uncommon. It has convoke, which we went over heavy in the white video, and it also has hexproof. Oh, and did I mention that it was a 7/5? Card seems like a giant power creature that is going to be impossible for somebody to remove.
Yeah, so this card I think is I don't think you can ever play more than one of it. But I do think that one of them is going to be great in a Celestia deck that has a good amount of ways to make tokens. I am not 100% positive that you can actually play this in a Golgari deck. I think it's just too expensive.
I think you can play it in a Golgari deck, but like again, if you're, because like Golgari is undergrowth, so you want to play a bunch of creatures. So if you just have like 20 creatures in your Golgari deck, like maybe you could play this.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah,
I think it is strong though when you can cast it reliably for 6 or less mana.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that you need to have it to be like a 6 or less drop. Like.
And you only have to have what,
kinda...
3 creatures out? 6 or 9 minus
yeah.
6 is
3 creatures and you can cast it for 6 mana. And
which is not like impossible.
Yeah.
If you're like planning on it, but you need to be planning on it. Like you can't just like throw this card in a deck without having a plan to like convert it out.
Right.
Because 9 mana is infinite.
I can't wait for my like Celestia Golgari opponent to like on turn 6 to tap their 3 like big dudes and then play this 4th big dude, and then I just like untap Citywide Bust and then play a creature and then they just lose.
Yeah, that is the ultimate blowout, and I think that might be the only removal spell in this format that takes care of this.
Yeah, I don't think there's an edict effect unless you I guess if you have the black, if that's the only creature on your battlefield and you have the black guy that makes you both sack a creature.
True. Yeah, that's it.
That seems unlikely, but I mean it could happen.
Yeah, so the only answer to this card are the rare Citywide Bust, the uncommon like Fleshback Martyr card, and that has to be your only creature, which is basically impossible because you're always convoking it out, so that's like never gonna happen.
Right.
Yep.
Or the actual way that this card's going to be answered, I think most of the time in this format, is Disdainful Stroke.
Yeah, Disdainful Stroke, or just blocking it with like a 5 power guy.
Yeah, but like it's, I don't know. This card's huge. It works well with pump spells, and like I'd be much more willing to play an Aura or something if I have this guy in my deck.
Right.
I don't know if you can actually play auras because of this. With Vimare, it was different because it was a 4-drop, but this is so expensive. Like that aura is just rotting in your hands, and there's a chance that like I keep killing your guys, and then you just can't cast this fast enough.
The other way, kind of building on what Ian just said there, the other way to kill this card in limited is just to kill your opponent before they can cast it. You know?
Yeah, 100%. That's going to be. Like, that's Boros' answer,
right?
Which is a very real answer, because this card costs $1 million, and, like, if you put a bunch of power on and make them chump block, they'll never actually cast this card.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually think that, even though it's a 7/5 hexproof, which is, like, insane, I actually think this card is, like, significantly worse than the previous card. Yeah. And I only have it at about, like... I'll put it as a 3, but I think I actually have it slightly lower than a 3. Like, I'll do the old 2.75.
Yeah, I actually agree with you that it's probably closer to somewhere in between 2.5 and a 3. Like,
yeah,
I don't think you can ever play more than 1, and you'll play 1 if you have the right deck for it. But not every green deck can actually play this.
I think the only way you can ever play 2 is if you have a bunch of those like 3 mana make 2 guys, right? And that's just like your plan.
Yep.
Yeah,
Is
that's
just
fair.
like play a bunch of those token makers and like you have like 2 of these in your deck and you just like play a bunch of like 1/1 tokens and then like ramp this out. But that's like a specific deck.
Mm.
But I think this card does need like this card has deck building restrictions, which is
Right.
why it's lower than like its power level may seem.
Right. It's like one step below a build around. Right.
I think you can actually reasonably call this a build around. I think it's like not unreasonable to call this card a build around, even though it's just a creature.
Right. Yeah. Because your deck definitely does have to have a critical mass of cheap creatures or tokens to just power this thing out. All right. Are you ready for Beast Whisperer?
Yeah, I love this card.
2 green for an elf druid. It is a rare. It is a 2/3, and it says whenever you cast a creature, draw a card. So this card is just Magus of Glimpse of Nature, right?
Yep.
Yes, that is basically what this card is.
This card is sweet. I think this card is at some point in time in Standard is going to be in a busted deck and will be tier 1. I don't know if that's right now, but I think at one point in its Standard life it will be.
So real quick, this card's very very good limited. Like probably a 4. Like first pick it most of the time.
Yep.
Unless like you open some foil busted thing, or like actually it's interesting. If you open this and the Indrik, what do you take?
What's Intric?
The
first
spell.
card, the 4/4, the 4/4 fight guy.
I take the Beast Whisperer every time.
Yeah, I'm more inclined,
I think
especially
so, too.
early in the format, to take the rares over the uncommon if I think they're comparable in power level, just because I'm so less likely to see the rare that I am an uncommon. But
I mean, there's also cost
solid.
4 mana too, so you can
Yeah,
get your value
I-
faster.
I agree, but I wouldn't be shocked if down the road Indrik just becomes like nuts. But I agree. I think this card in limited is nuts. Where this card gets interesting again is constructed. Standard, I don't know if there's anything right now. We do have Song of Freyalise, which this card works quite well with.
Yep.
But in modern, I think so. Modern Elves has basically has tried to use every single like Glimpse of Nature esque effect before. Like they've tried Beck Call, didn't really work out because it was blue and they didn't want to be blue. This card is just mono green and a creature. It does not get enough collect company, which is relevant, but it is a like possible nice Court of Calling target.
Yep.
So modern elves will like I'm like very confident they will try this card. I don't know if it's good enough to stick in that deck, but this will probably start out as a one of in those decks, and I would not be stunned if this became like a 4 of in that deck and just like one of the real engine pieces.
Yeah.
Because it is an elf.
Sorry, continue.
Is it because it is an elf and it does tap with Heritage Druid? Or is that the one? No. What's the one drop that taps 3 elves?
That's Heritage Druid.
Yeah,
It is
very
Heritage?
good,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nettle Sentinel is the one that untaps when you cast a green spell.
Yeah.
So I actually think this card is also going to see play in Legacy Elves because it's basically a Glimpse of Nature that you can Green Sun Zenith for, which is super awesome because it now just gives you 8. It gives you 12 copies of Glimpse of Nature if you count Green Sun Zenith for 5, which I know is a lot of mana, but there is a lot of times in Legacy Elves where you have a crap ton of mana, but there's no like. You don't have a glimpse, so you don't have any card draw, and you don't have like enough mana to like get or to like sorry, you don't have enough mana to Green Sun for Crater Hoof, but you're like in the in between stage. So this just like lets you can Green Sun for this, and then if you have any follow up or a bounce a way to bounce your elf to your hand, you can just start going off again, and it just it lets you just reliably have more glimpses in your deck. I think it's going to be really interesting to see if that's a way to win. It also lets you probably shouldn't do this, but it is an option. If you don't have like a lethal board state, but you need to win that turn, you can natural order for it and then try to go off after that. So yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot of cool implications in Legacy Elves with this card.
Yeah. I'm not I'm not a believer of this card in Legacy, most because it costs 4 mana. But another interesting thing and another interesting aspect of this card in Legacy, though, is that it can be uncounterable with Cavern Souls.
Yep.
So it can be like an uncounterable glimpse, which like a lot of blue matchups, they just like try to counter your glimpse and then like deal with your 1/1s like slowly, but like just deal with a couple of them, and then they can usually beat you out with a delve or something. And this can be a uncounterable glimpse, but it can also be bolted. So
Yeah. I could see this in the sideboard though when you're playing like against a like this probably just beats the shadow deck every time if you can get this before they like put a clock on.
Yeah. This card, well, I actually kind of after you talked about it, I think people will try it. The 4 mana scares me. Like
Yeah,
4 mana, like that deck
The
has
thing is,
access
though-
to natural order, so like it's weird to think of a 4 mana card that doesn't just win the game in the spot, but like.
Right. I mean, the way you have to look at it is just extra copies of Glimpse, even though it costs more mana, just for redundancy's sake. I don't think that you would play 4 of the Beast Whisperer. I think you would just play like
No, you
one
play
of them
one.
because you can
Yeah,
use
yeah.
Green Sun for it,
yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
and then additional copies on the side, maybe for like the blue decks, which you could also just start playing more Caverns. I don't think Elves actually plays like a lot of Caverns.
No, I don't think they play a set. I think they play like 1 or 2.
Yeah, but you could play more because of this.
Maybe.
So any numbers for constructed?
I think that it's like a 3.5. I think it's gonna see play one way or another.
I'll put it as a 2.5. I'm skeptical, but it is
I think-
like
I think you're right that
Potential-wise
it's more of a 2.5 right now, and then
uh,
further down the line, once people figure out how to use this card the right way, it'll be a little bit higher.
Yeah.
So like towards a 3.5.
Song of Freyalise makes this card like I think if Song of Freyalise didn't exist, I'd be much more down on this card for standard. But I think because Song of Freyalise exists, that this card has a much higher chance of doing some like making some waves of standard.
Definitely. Bounty of Might. 4 green for an instant. It's a rare. Target creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn. Target creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn. Target creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn. Did Infect just get a new toy?
Infect is back.
Yeah, Infect is back, baby.
I hate.
Oh yeah.
That
+9/+9 to your Blooded Agent. The game's just over. What do you do?
Yeah, I mean 6 mana, 6 mana to cast that seems real good.
for
I mean, doesn't the Covenants cost 7?
I know.
Wow,
Right?
wait, I never thought about it like that.
Wow.
Holy cow.
So,
I actually think it costs 6.
as
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm pretty sure it's 5 in a green.
Just in case
Yeah.
nobody's noticed, our Discord name is Memes and Magic, so we were 100% just memeing on everyone right there. There was a dude on, I think, Mythic Spoiler in the comment sections of every new card that was spoiled that was a pump spell. He was commenting, looks like Infect got a new toy, and so we just
No,
started
he was doing for like there was some guy for it was for Dredge. It was like every
Oh,
Undergrowth
for
card.
Dredge. Okay.
He
Yeah.
was like,
gotcha.
looks like Undergrowth got a new toy. So like I saw this and was like,
No, Dredge.
well, I think I would have made this joke anyway, just because it's like +9/+9, which is the magic number
Right.
in fact. But yeah, this card's will not see play in standard
Nope.
in any constructed format. In limited, this card's like a blowout.
I think this card is amazing, honestly.
It's it's so
in
easy
limited.
to be just like kill 3 creatures with this card, or just kill your opponent,
Or
Like,
just kill your opponent.
yeah, it's like 6 mana modal, like destroy target, destroy up to 3 target creatures, or destroy target player. Like
Yep.
Yeah,
It's what this card's gonna be
I
able to
want
use
all
nine
of my
times.
green decks to have one of this.
We've only seen,
yeah.
what, maybe...
I would play 2 or 3. You kidding me?
I don't know if I can
I-
play 3. It's 6
No,
mana.
no, no. Yeah, I know, but you attack with all your guys, they block, and you bounty of might like 3 guys to blow them out, right? And then like you attack again, and they're like, well, there's no way I have a second bounty might.
I mean,
Just like-
it's a rare that's like never gonna happen, but yeah. Sure.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. Like I would, like I've had drafts where I've had multiple
I
of the same
know.
rare. It's
I know.
rare, but it's possible.
It's almost like rare is a convenient term that they
I
use
know.
to describe these
Yeah.
cards.
How
But
many
yeah, this card's
pump-
like
How many pump spells
What?
have we actually seen? We've only seen like 5 pump spells. Or
not
so,
a
right?
ton.
And this is
Most of them
3
are red and
pump
green.
spells on one.
Yeah, it's
My
just a
goodness.
3 for 1. It's
Yeah.
just a 3 for 1 or an I win card. Like it's gonna be insane.
There's like +2/+2 in white for 1. There's +3/+0 in first strike for 2. Those are the instant speed ones. There's some sorcery speed ones
There's that weird
Like,
undergrowth
+1,
card in
+1
black
haste.
that we counted as a combat trick.
Yeah.
The
plus
undergrowth
X
thing.
plus O for. Is
Oh
that a creature?
no. He's talking about the minus
Yeah, the
X
minus X
X.
minus X thing. That X
Oh,
also
That's like
creature
more of a
necrotic.
removal spell.
Yeah,
And
that's
like
necrotic.
can be yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't count the blue spell either, the -3 -0. But I don't really count that as a combat trick either.
Yeah,
But as
yeah.
far as instant speed pump spells, I believe we've seen 2,
Yeah.
which is like not a lot.
Right. That being said, I've got this as like a 3.5 in limited.
I
think
think
it's
it's
a
a
4.
4. Yeah, I think it's a 4.
Yeah, this card's a bomb. This
Yeah.
card's so unbeatable.
I'm first picking this over. I think every uncommon.
I agree. I think so. Yeah, I think I
it'd
would
have to be
first
a
pick this
foil rare
over.
mythic for me to.
Yeah, I think I would first pick this over the like O-ring in white or whatever, or the black like.
Conclave
removal spell.
Tribunal is probably the closest card to this.
Well, I think the black, the 3 and a black instant speed destroy target creature, surveil 2, and it's like cost 2 less, which is legendary. I think that's actually the best uncommon.
That's fair.
I think Conclave Tribunal, that black spell, and the Indric, the 4/4 fight guy, those are like the top 3 premium uncommons in the set.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure. And I think I would take Bounty and Might over all of them.
Here's yet another green card that I cannot pronounce.
Circuitous routes.
Yeah,
Circuitous or
Circuitous.
Is circuitous a real word?
I don't know. Probably.
I think that they made it up, but I think it's just supposed to mean like
a maze, like it's shown in the card art.
That's amazing.
Sure.
Amazing.
This card is just better explosive vegetation.
Yeah. So
It's
three and
technically strictly better.
3 and a green for a sorcery. It's an uncommon. Search your deck for up to 2 basic land cards and or gate cards. Put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. Yep. Just
What this card essentially is they wanted to reprint Farseek for limited, but not for constructed.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Do you know what Farseek is?
Yeah, but why? This is so different. The mana cost is like a huge part of that, isn't it?
I know, but that's why I'm saying they wanted it to be for limited. Like they wanted they wanted a spell in green that could
That
get
was
you
also
dual
fixing,
lands
yeah.
for limited, but like not have it be like just this like dominating force in standard.
Right.
That being said, I think this card is constructed playable. Like this card is standard playable because explosive vegetation was, and this card in standard is just going to be basically explosive vegetation. But like maybe you can play some gates and you can like play maybe like some 3, even 4 color if you're greedy, like ramp deck.
Yeah, I think that there's eventually going to be a ramp deck that uses this, though I think that Grow from the Ashes is probably a little bit better than it right now.
Yeah, that's
Especially with Llanowar Elf being able to go Llanowar Elf into Grow, or
well,
like,
yeah, it
later on
depends.
ramp
I
to
think
Grow.
that
Or
yeah.
Grow for 5, getting 2 untapped land or basic lands is I think maybe just better than this card most of the time in constructed, just because you can hold up like a removal spell, so you can like grow and get like black blue in your Sultai deck, and then have up either like a Disdainful Stroke or a Cast Down, and just be ready to go.
I agree. I like Grow better in like ramp decks to have Llanowar Elf, but I think there's going to be like it's possible for there to be a ramp deck that doesn't play Llanowar Elf. Like last season, we saw a decent amount of like almost like creatureless ramp decks,
Yeah,
where they're like these like control decks, and I think that like if you play Gift of Paradise with this this card, you get to like that's a lot of free fixing, and you get to kind of be this like big green blue X like whatever other colors you want
White.
deck.
Green.
And
blue,
like
white.
well, I mean you could be green blue white. I don't know.
I mean, I also think
White's-
that if you want to play like a ramping dinosaur deck, you can play Drover of the Mighty and then this card, so that you could do that. You can play this on turn 3.
Yeah, I think if you're doing Dinos or Drover, I think like that deck has that card. That deck has the Rampant Growth card, the Thunderous
That's
Migration
true.
Drover.
Well, that
So-
also plays well with Circuitous route though, because you can go ramping growth into Circuitous route.
Yeah, but like, there's
You'd have to be really, really hard on the ramp. Like,
yeah, and I
like,
don't think you
do,
want to be
like,
because
the 6 and 7 drops.
yeah, I'm not a huge fan of like I think Zakama like I saw Zakama in the sideboard of some ramp decks, which I kind of like Zakama in the sideboard of some ramp decks, but as like a main deck like your primary like finisher, I don't think Zakama is quite good enough. It's close. That card's good.
Yeah.
I don't think it's quite there to like really go all in though. But yeah, this is like an explosive vegetation. If you want an explosive vegetation, it can get like if you are a 3 or 4 color ramp deck, you can play like 2 to 4 gates, right? And like the first one will get like 2 gates almost every time, even if you draw one naturally or whatever.
Definitely.
In limited, this card's also very good. This card enables like some real like trickery with like 4 color nonsense.
Yeah, I think that this is actually a pack 1 pickable card if you notice that there's like a good amount of diversity in your pack that you think would wheel. It also lets you kind of stay open in what guild you're at.
Yep.
This is also if pack 1 you went really hard and like took a bunch of guild gates of like different colors, and like you don't have spells that really lead you in any super direction, and you open this pack 2, I could see you like just taking this and trying to like build some 4 color whatever.
AK
Even
every deck
3
I'm
color.
gonna build in this format.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like
this card's good. Being able to get 2 gates in limited is like really good.
Yeah. I think that this is probably a 3 in limited.
Yeah, I like 3 in limited.
I probably should put it as a 3, but you know me. This is a straight up. This is a straight up 4 for me. I mean,
Really?
I can't not pass this card. I mean, I probably will do like a serious draft or 2 just to like figure things out. But when I get deep into this format, this card is going to be what I'm going to take every single time it's in the pack. I mean, this is going to be almost like the guy who killed John Lennon in Catcher in the Rye. Like, this is going to be my Catcher in the Rye. Like, I'm just not going to be able to walk past the bookstore.
Statement.
I'm not going to be able to walk past the bookstore without picking up a circuitous route.
What so what are you gonna do when like your first draft you open this and
And what you
cut out.
Oh no!
Oh no, we're never gonna find out.
No, we're never gonna find out. Actually, I really want to hear this question. So when he comes back, I think we pick up from there. Because I really want to hear that question. Oh, hold on.
Sorry, I disconnected. If you open this and Chromatic Lantern, what do you take?
Oh my god! Don't ask him that question.
Oh god! I think we're gonna have to like end the stream, and I'm gonna have to like sleep on this question. Man,
Dude,
it is an uncommon and a rare. It's like a very possible thing to happen.
No.
An actual little rock and a hard place.
Oh man. Whew. Okay. I don't know. I'll have an answer for you by the time we get to artifacts, maybe.
By the time we get to Chromatic Lantern, I'm gonna ask you again.
Off on the back for that joke, by the way.
Yeah, that was a really good joke. It stunned me, and that doesn't happen very often. Crushing Canopy. 2 and a green for an instant. It's a common. Choose one. Destroy target creature with flying, or destroy target enchantment.
I mean, we've seen this before. It was in Ixalan. I think that it's a great sideboard card in your green decks to deal with flyers and incidental enchantment hate, or just whatever. It's modal, so you get to do both. I think that picking this like towards the end of a pack is fine. And I think that I would probably want at least 2 of them in my sideboard for most of my green drafts.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how I did it with Ixalan, but Ixalan was a little bit different of a format because I think that green is a lot better in this format than it was in Ixalan draft. The only way it was really good in Ixalan draft was red green dinosaurs, where you actually did need the crushing canopies in your sideboard, but it was less effective than I think it will be in this one. There's a lot of flyers that are kind of hard to deal with, and a lot of big ones, especially like the white angels.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Really just a strictly sideboard things, or?
Yeah.
I mean, I think you can main deck it if you think so, but I don't know. For me, I don't think I would.
Yeah, I've got a level 2.5. I think
right.
you board it in when you see a lot of flyers, or if they have that really good O-ring enchantment, things like that. So I have it as like a 2.5.
Real quick, this card like has seen play in standard before and might see play in again. It does kill Lyra and Conclave Tribunal, which are like 2 very standard playable cards.
Yeah, I think that while that is true, I think there are just better options for that.
No, yeah. This is a card that's like mono green Stompy Split, and like that's the only deck that would play. Is like a deck that's like only mono green, or your sideboard slots are very limited.
Right. I also think that we should probably just move on from constructed since it's already in constructed. It's just
Yeah,
like
yeah,
bringing
fair.
us new things.
So
Yeah,
what,
yeah,
I've got it as like a 2.5 in limited.
Yeah.
No, I have it low. I have like 1.5. It's just a sideboard card.
Yeah.
I think that two is fine then. Like I think 2 is usually what I do for sideboard cards, so I'm gonna do that.
Yeah. Jeez, they just hate me.
Devkarin Descendant.
Devkarin Descendant, 1 in a green for an elf warrior. It's a common. It is a 2/2. It has the activated ability 4 in a green. Devkarin Descendant gets +2/+2 until end of turn.
This card's pretty good. I love mana
It's a
sinks.
bear.
Yep, it's a bear with upside.
Yeah, this reminds me of the Battle for Zendikar like 8 activated ability guys.
The invokers.
Whatever they were called.
Pretty sure they're invokers.
Sure. This one just does it for a little bit less, obviously less powerful ability, but still really good in late game.
Yeah. As we've noted, like creatures aren't big. This comes a 4/4. It's going to beat up most things. So, threat of activation is real.
For sure.
Play of is 2.5. It's just like a good bear.
Yep, that's exactly where I had it.
Yep. Same. What did you say it was?
2.5.
2.5.
Yeah, 2.5. Yeah.
District Guide, 2 in a green for an elf scout. It is an uncommon. It is also a 2/2. It says when District Guide enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land card or a gate card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library.
This card is amazing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we've seen
So this card's
very
like
similar cards to this before. Like
So this card's like a 3 in limited, right?
yeah, oh yeah, definitely.
Because I think we can all agree it's around a 3 in limited, and I think we're going to talk about it mostly in standard.
Yep.
Because this card will see standard play.
I think that this could be a little bit higher than a 3, like almost a 4.
Limited?
Like I think that I'm gonna pick a lot of these if I can in my green decks. It just smooths out a lot of your curve.
I don't know, like I don't think I would take this over like an actual power card, like a Indrik, Infection Indrik, or like
Yeah.
the
You're gonna pick it over
or
any
something.
common though. Like I don't think there's a common that I would take over this. You'll fight over other uncommons and rares. Like I don't think I'm gonna pack one, pick one at District Guide unless the options are that poor. But I do think that I want like a high amount of these as I'll take as many of these as I can.
I mean, if I'm pack one, pick one, I'd probably take a common rule as well with this card.
Okay, that's fair. That might
Like,
just speak to the way that we draft.
Yeah, like the 5-mana destroy creature surveil too. I'm probably gonna take that over this.
Yeah, I mean, to me, drafting is the most fun in Magic as long as I don't either flood out or get mana screwed. And this card
Yeah.
helps me at least take care of one of those things. So I
Absolutely.
just highly take those kind of cards. But like I said, that's just like a personal preference. So I can get
Yeah.
why you take a common rule spell over this.
Yes, but this card is good in limited. It's also good in constructed.
Yep.
In constructed, this is getting a basic land like 90% of the time. I think there's some chance that there's like some 3-color decks that might play 1 gate, like total, in 75, and that's not even like 100%.
Right.
Like I've been building some like Sultai lists that play like 4 Overgrown Tombs, 4 Woodland Cemeteries, and then 1 copy of Golgari Guildgate and like 4 District Guides, and that's mostly to facilitate Find Broker, which is one of the color 4-drops.
Right.
But I think that more often than not, this will only get basics, but that's fine. We've seen State Wayfinder be really good, where it's just like a 2-mana 1/1, get a land sometimes, not even always, and this is just a 3-mana 2/2, which the 2/2 body's way better, and it guaranteed gets you a land. Like this card's like a soft 2-for-1.
Yep.
Which in standard is like what green wants to do most of the time.
So my only qualm with this card is that Elvish Rejuvenator does exist. They aren't
Yes.
exactly the same card. but there
Yes.
is some decks that would like to play one over the other, and it's gonna be weird figuring out which card belongs in your deck. I think that if you lean towards a Convoke deck, I kind of like Elvish Rejuvenator more, because the following turn you can Convoke for 1 extra mana since you're ramping and you have a body, where this card
Mhm.
you get the land to your hand, but you get a 2/2 body. Specifically with something like Venerated Loxodon, I think Elvish Rejuvenator is a little bit better because you get to actually put a counter on it too, which then makes it Unchain Whirlerable. So that's nice. But I think in decks like you said with Sultai and things like that, where you don't necessarily need to ramp because you're already going to do well in the late game, you just kind of need like a high density of lands to make sure you don't miss your land drops. I think District Guide is probably a little bit better, and you probably want the body. But in a more like go wide, or if you want to do more rampy kind of styles, I think that you're gonna play Elvish Rejuvenator over it. But it might be that District Guide is just always better. The 2/2 body might just always be better than the ramp, and it'll be really interesting trying to figure out which one is better. And I'm definitely gonna try it out. There might be even a deck where you play like 3-3 or like 4-2.
Yeah, I agree that there's a so that is a good comparison. Like that, those cards do compete with each other because they do very similar things, and like that is a decision you're going to be making in your deck choices. Another thing, Rejuvenator gets any land,
Yep.
so it can get dual lands without having to play gates,
Yep.
which is like pretty important.
They have to be in the top whatever 5 or 4 cards, whatever it is.
4.
Yeah, 4
Yeah.
cards, but that's still a nice added bonus.
Yeah, I do think District Guide has a higher chance of being strictly better. I'm not saying one is strictly better than the other because I think that I'm with you that like they do different things and like different they fill different similar but different roles in what a deck wants. But District Guide is bigger, has a bigger body, is a 2/2 instead of a 1/1, and guaranteed gets you a card.
Mm-hmm.
So it has a higher chance to be strictly better, quote unquote. But it's yet to be seen which one's actually better.
I do think that like if you're trying to play like March of the Multitudes and you want to play this kind of 3-drop, I think that you're gonna have a better time with Elvish Rejuvenator just because you get to get an extra guy basically out of
Fair,
it.
Yeah.
Which then lets you make another March of the Multitudes for even more because that card's sweet.
Oh.
Yep.
But yeah, I think that this card is gonna be like a 4. It's just gonna be played in a lot of green decks.
Okay. On to Generous Stray. It is 2 and a green for a creature cat. It is a common. It's a 1/2, and when Generous Stray enters the battlefield, draw a card.
And get 2 energy.
Yep. This card is basically Rogue Refiner. I mean, like it's the new Rogue Refiner, and we saw how powerful Rogue Refiner was because it got banned in Standard.
Dude, it's even better because there's no blue. You don't have to play crappy blue cards.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
And there's a lot going on in this art. There's like a lot of mushrooms and all kinds of stuff.
I think those are piles of leaves.
I'm pretty sure they're mushrooms, right, Tyler?
I have no idea.
Isn't it fungus?
All I know is that that's a lizard, not a snake. That's all I know.
Yeah.
There's a fungus among us.
Yeah.
For real though, this card actually is like I've been back and forth in this card a couple times in limited, which is like it seems like a really boring card, but so I was like high in this card because it's draw card, and then I was low on it because it's a 1/2, and like it's I don't want to play a card that draws a card only for chump blocks and has no other value, and then I was high on it again because like oh you can double block with it, but it only has 1 power, so I'm not entirely sure. I'm gonna put this as a 2 in limited, and I feel like I'm gonna take it higher than that because I like drawing cards, but I think it's around a 2 in limited.
Yep.
Yeah, I can kind of get behind this. Well. I do think that it is the 1/2 body is more relevant and limited than you think, just because there is a good amount of 1-drop 1/1s, and there's also a good amount of like X1s. So there's like 2/1s and 3/2 or 3/1s that this will at least trade with. So that's interesting. I think that like I'll play at least one of these in my green deck. I'm not gonna ever pick this close to the top, but I'm gonna take it over like a non-color. A card that's not my color. I'm gonna pick this.
Mm-hmm.
And as we discussed in the black video, sometimes you just want a critical mass of creatures that just die. and this one, when it
Yeah.
when it enters the battlefield, it gets value, and then you can
Yep.
also collect your value off the fact that it's sitting in your graveyard. So
It's also a good it's a good card to sack if you have like a Vraska Unlimited or like whatever, some sort of, if you need a sack outlet in limited, like you don't really care if this gets sacked because you already drew a card.
This card for sure is better in Golgari than Celestia.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I agree, 100%.
All right. Speaking of Golgari, Golgari Raiders, 3 and a green for an elf warrior. It's an uncommon. It's a 0/0. It has haste, but it also has undergrowth. And on this card, undergrowth means Golgari Raiders enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for each creature card in your graveyard. I mean, this card's just a 4-mana 8/8 with haste. I mean, how can you beat this card?
I mean, that's the plan, right? Like,
Yeah,
this card's quite
sweet.
unlimited.
Yeah.
This card's
Like,
sweet.
in limited, this card's probably a 3.5. Like, so I hesitate to call it a 3.5 because it's like in the right deck, it's a 4,
Right.
and in the wrong deck, it's like not good at all.
Yep, it'll be like just a 0/0.
I don't know. Well, I don't think there'll be any deck where it's a 0/0, but like if this card's a 2/2, it's like pretty bad. But if this card's a 4/4, it's like actively very good.
Yep. That's
It's not even
Which is
that.
not-
It's not even that bad as a 3/3, honestly.
No, yeah, it's not. It's not bad at all.
I think
It's
3
just
is a
like-
magic number for this card for you to play it. Like, you never play this until you have 3 or more.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. Unless they're dead, because it's a haste creature. But like,
Sure,
yeah.
sure. Unless you can actually just kill them with it having a 1/1 counter on it.
I'll agree that like, yeah, I'll hold this for sure until at least 3. I'll probably hold until 4 because I'm great.
Which it actually might not be that hard with the amount of surveil that you can get in black and
Yeah.
and the amount of like self mill that exists. I think that this card will often end up being like a Sultai card, honestly.
Oh yeah.
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 I think it'll often be a 4/4 or bigger,
Yeah.
which is quite big. So I think that's why 3.5. I have heard rumblings about this card in Standard, which I normally it's in the deck that I'm not a huge fan of. It's in the deck that's what's it called, the Stitcher Supplier.
No,
Like
And
a turbo mill, Narcomoeba.
I don't even know Narcomoeba, but like more of like I've heard about these like black green like aggro decks that play like there's a 3-mana 4/4 troll we'll get to later.
dude, you hate that card.
I'm not a fan of that card. Again, I'm not. I just want to mention it because I've heard rumblings
Yeah.
of like this
I
deck.
do think that
but
they go in the same deck.
yeah, I don't think it's. But like in that deck, this card's planning on being like a 4-mana 7/7 with haste,
Yeah.
which
Seems
haste
pretty
is like
good.
if it was just a 4-mana 7/7, I would say it's bad. But because it has haste, like it gets to do something right away.
Yeah.
The haste is very important on this card for constructed purposes.
Most definitely. Most definitely. All right. Grappling Sundew. 1 and a green for a plant. It's an uncommon. It is an 0/4. It has Defender and Reach, and it has the activated ability 4 and a green. Grappling Sundew gains indestructible until end of turn. Is this the 2-drop?
This is my kind of card.
Is this the 2-drop that Arcades has been waiting for?
I don't know about that, but this is my kind of card. Like this is the card I really. These are the kind of cards I really like.
Yeah.
Where just like, it's like we talk about how an 0/3 might not be big enough, but I think an 0/4 is. I think that because a lot of the mentor creatures are 3 power, which gets your other guys up to 3 power. Then I think the difference between 3 and 4 toughness is a big deal in this format. And this has 4 toughness. It has reach, which green decks struggle with flyers.
Yeah, the reach is
And-
definitely important with this card.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The activated ability late game to be able to just like have this this just impenetrable wall later is a big deal. This is the kind of card I like a lot. Like this is the kind of card that I'll probably overvalue, to be honest, because I like the style of decks that this goes in, where you just like have some walls. Like I was a big fan of Rotting Mastodon in Comstar Gear.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that card's sweet.
And this is my new Rotting Mastodon. Just like sit behind this thing while I do my different value stuff and like peck away with like a flyer or something, and just have a grand old time.
Have you looked at
I'll have this card as a 3 in limited, but I might value it higher personally.
I'm probably gonna value it a little bit lower, like a 2.5. I don't think I.
2.5.
Yeah, I don't see myself picking this very. To me, this is more of like a common, power level. Though I mean, it's a little bit better than a common, but I'm not gonna pick this like I do another There's so many good uncommons in this set for limited that I just have a hard time picking this over a lot of the other uncommons. But you know, I might. Who knows?
No.
Yeah.
Hatchery Spider. 5 green, so 7 mana. For a spider, it's a rare. It is a 5/7. It has reach. It also has undergrowth. And on this card, it means when you cast this spell, reveal the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. You may put a green permanent card with converted mana cost X or less from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order.
Yeah. So this card's Genesis Hydra, which was X green for a Hydra. You put X counters on it, reveal the top X cards, and put a permanent into play with CMC extra less. That's kind of what this is, but it's not the same because it's fixed at 7 mana. It's always a 5/7, and it's undergrowth. That says so you can for 7 mana you can theoretically look at 20 cards or whatever.
Right.
So this card's is like a bomb in limited.
Oh yeah.
It's like a pretty. I don't know if it's a 4 just because it costs 7 mana, but it's like a 3.75 or something. It's like close.
This card would be so awesome if it was when it enters the battlefield, because then you could just chain them.
It would be way too busted. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I don't think it would be absolutely busted. It would still be a 7 mana spell.
5/7, which is not that good.
Well, I mean, it would be a 7 mana 5/7 that gets 3 other 7 mana 5/7s on the battlefield. But
I mean,
yes,
that's 20 points of power for 7
yeah,
mana.
no. It's really good if you could do that, but I don't think it would be like busted because it still costs 7 mana. Sorry.
Notably for standard, I don't think this card's standard playable, but I will mention this for standard because I think that there's a chance that some people will try this in standard. Because it is a cast trigger, if they counter this, the cast trigger still happens. Also, on the cast trigger, it just says put the card into play. So if you find some Vivian Reed or something, or some whatever green permanent you have, it just goes into play. Your opponent does not have a chance to counter it anytime, and it just goes into play.
Yeah, and that's just a real sweet way to sneak in just something pretty powerful.
Yeah, I could see this being a sideboard card actually in standard for green decks who want a little bit bigger of a green deck, who maybe have some ramp in them that want to try to hedge bets against control. Because I do think this card's good against control.
Because that was the thing that Genocider is good against, because it was on the cast, and you get the spell that you flip into no matter what, even if they counter the Hydra.
Yep.
So, and that's this does the same thing.
Yeah. So would you guys have it rated as in limited? And if you think it has any construct applications, I'll take those numbers as well.
I'll put it as a 1.5 in constructed because I think there's a chance it's a sideboard card, like Ian said, but I'm not sold on it at all.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it as a 2 just because I think that there's a chance, and it does belong in a deck that might not exist right now, but could be.
And
limited, I said 3.75, I think, because it's not quite a 4 bomb because it costs 7.
I'm fine with putting it as a 4. This is a card that I'm happy to pack one, pick one pretty much every time. There has to be some really good uncommon for me to take it over it.
I've got it as a 3.
But I think I would take a good uncommon over this.
Maybe. It'd be tough. It'd have to be one of the ones that we talked about.
It is close. Yeah, for sure. It'd have to be one of the top tier ones.
Hitchclaw Recluse. 2 and a green for a spider. It's a common. It's a 1/4, and it has reach. We talked earlier about how good the 0/4 was. The fact that this is a 1/4 that also has reach is pretty good. Comes up the ground, comes up the air a little bit. I think this card is something that a green deck is very easily going to want one, maybe even in the main deck, if not additionals out of the side, depending on how aggressive your opponent is, how many flyers they have. Because this card blocks very well in this format, it seems.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to play at least one of these in all my green decks. I think it's just a nice 20 to 23rd playable.
Yep.
This card also just works well with Golgari and Selesnya. Golgari and Selesnya both kind of want to muck up the board and play a bunch of creatures.
Mm-hmm.
And this card does that really well. 4 toughness and reach. Like, this card's very main deckable and limited.
I also do want to note that if you want to splash this in like a Boros deck and play like a Naya deck, that it is a very good mentor target as well.
Oh yeah,
Probably never gonna happen, but
Yeah.
yeah.
But
I think
if it does
Boros
become a 2/5, like this just blocks every flyer I think in the format, except for like the 5/4 in blue.
Uh-huh.
And the demon.
Yeah, sure, and the demon,
Yeah.
the mythic.
Boros is probably the least likely guild to want to splash.
I know.
So.
I mean, there is a chance
Yeah.
though if you're more like Celestia splash red, you know.
So normally I put this as a 2, but I think last time this was in limited, I think was Origins. I'm trying to think if it was in something after that, but I think Origins was the last time, like exactly Hitchcall Recluse was in limited, and it overachieved there. Like I think a lot of people had it low at first, and it just kind of slowly climbed up the rankings as the format went on. You learned more about it, and I kind of think that this is going to be the same thing here. So I'm actually going to put it as like a 2.5.
Yeah, I think 2.5 is pretty accurate for me.
I had it as a 2.75, just because I wanted to use the decimal system a little heavier than you guys tonight. Iron Shell Beetle, 1 in a green for an insect. It's a common. It is a 1/1, and it says when Iron Shell Beetle enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature.
I'm not a fan of this card.
It's a bear. It's a 2. All bears are 2s. It's a bear. It's 2.
Yep.
That's all I have to say.
I've got it as like a 1.5.
Yeah.
I am kind of with you. It is a bear, but
I think most bears I like better than this one.
yeah, that's exactly how I feel about this one.
It's really relevant about what other creatures you have and what kind of things you can abuse with the +1/+1 counter.
Yeah, it's obviously better if you're Selesnya and like you have some white mentor creatures or something.
Yep.
Kroll Foragers, 4 in a green for an insect scout. It is a common. It is a 4/4, and it has Undergrowth. When Kroll Foragers enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life for each creature in your graveyard. If you have, if you can get this card to gain 3 or 4 life, I wouldn't be ashamed to have this card in my Golgari deck, or even like a Sultai-esque deck.
In limited, also don't underestimate the fact that it's a 4/4.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's still
all
a
these
5 mana. It's a 5 mana 4/4.
Yeah,
we've seen all these like 1/2s and like 2/1s and 2/2s and stuff. And this card's just a 4. It's huge.
Yeah.
It's like so much bigger than all the creatures in the format.
No.
It's just so big. Like the ability is like almost irrelevant.
The incidental life gain is gonna be great against the Boros decks too. So
Okay.
if you have like extra in your sideboard, you might want to sideboard them in. Though it is still 5 mana, so.
I hesitate to call this card a 3. I think it's probably a 2.5, but like it's
kind of on a 2.5.
large for a common.
Yep.
Real quick, I've heard rumblings about this card in Standard as a sideboard card.
Okay.
In an Undergrowth deck that like, not even like, it is a sideboard card for the like super hard Undergrowth decks that would play like the Golgari Raiders we saw earlier or something, but also just in a like green-black deck that has a bunch of creatures, as almost like if this card enters against a red deck and gains you like 5 life and it's a 4/4, like it's not bad.
I mean, it's just Thragtusk.
Not quite.
Yeah, there's a lot missing there. There's a lot missing there, but okay.
It's just Arborback Stomper.
Yeah, sure.
That card has
Doesn't
rotated,
have
so it's
trample.
no longer legal.
Yeah. So if Arborback Stomper was a staple in your deck, here you go. Here's the easy replacement.
So I'm gonna put it as a 1 to constructed. I don't think I'll ever put it in my sideboard as like a life gain spell, but I have seen it. Like I've seen it in lists. I think some of the SCG guys put it in like their sideboard for some of the like Golgari lists early on.
All right. Kroll Harpooner, 1 in a green for an uncommon. It's an insect warrior. It is a 3/2. It has reach, and it's another Undergrowth card. When Kroll Harpooner enters the battlefield, choose up to 1 target creature with flying you don't control. Coral Harpooner gets plus X plus O until end of turn, where X equals the number of creature cards in your graveyard. Then you may have Coral Harpooner fight that creature. So this is a 2-mana 3/2 with reach that could just like snipe a Lyra out of the sideboard or an Aurelia out of the sideboard in constructed.
If it was so the first strike of Lyra is gonna kill it most likely.
Well, no, if it fights,
if you
then...
fight it, then that first strike's irrelevant.
Oh really? I thought fight still had first strike.
No, fight ignores. Fight is just you deal power to each other. It does not care about first strike.
No, it doesn't care about trample. It doesn't care about first strike. The only thing
It cares about
is lifelink.
And death touch.
Yep.
Oh, lifelink and death touch matter, but wow,
Yeah,
that
I
just
thought
first
says
strike
deals
mattered.
damage. It isn't.
No, because they just
damage.
all fight is they deal damage to each other. So the only reason that lifelink and death touch matter is because
It's 'cause
the
it's
creature
damage, I
itself
get
is
that.
dealing damage. Yeah,
Yeah, no, I
but
get that.
it's not like in combat where like first strike has damage first. So like
Okay.
this, if you have two creatures in the yard and you play this, it can like trade with a Lyra.
Yeah.
They gain 5 life, but like it is a 2-mana way to kill Lyra in green, which is not bad.
Right.
I mean, there's plummet, but
Yeah, I know,
think
but
that
this is
also
like a
just
main
2
deck.
mana. This is also just
Yeah.
a 2-mana 3/2. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that this is more of a main deck card for sure. I also think that it's just a 2-mana 3/2, which is like really good
Yeah.
for green. There's not a lot of green cards that are 2-mana 3/2s. I think. Like
No,
green
yeah, they were
had
playing, like-
trouble getting 2-mana like cards. Like Thorn Lieutenant is a good card that I like a lot. But besides that, like in mono green, there really isn't that many. Like good.
Well, I think this card like
drops.
replaces Merfolk Branchwalker in like Mono Green Stompy.
Yeah, I also agree with that.
Like
This card would have
I
been
don't think they.
insane. This card would have
Yeah.
been insane if Heart of Kirin was still here.
Oh yeah, this card's great. I think it just goes really well in Stompy anyway. Like this card, it's clearly good in Stompy. I wouldn't be shocked if they showed this anywhere else. Like in some green aggressive deck, it is a 2-mana feature, like you said,
Yeah.
and it has like some like there's a non-zero amount of flyers in this format. Like Aurelia is a flyer that's important. Lyra, the
Yeah.
demon.
This
Like-
also deals with a Phoenix, at least the first half of it, which I think is super important.
It's also like with like the demon and like Aurelia and Lyra, you don't need Undergrowth to be that much. Like it needs to be 2,
Yeah.
which is like
2 or
not a
3
lot.
if you want the
Yeah.
6.
If 3 if you want the demon, right, and like 2 if you just want a 5. So like that's like not a ton, and it's optional, so you don't have to fight.
Yep.
I want to
this card's
figure out
just
if there's I want to figure out if there's a way to give this card haste.
Yeah. I mean, that would be
just
really
to, like,
sweet.
Have it come in, get +5 also, and just like attack for 8 or something.
There was that goblin
I mean, at
in
that
red
point,
that
isn't
could sack.
the 4-mana like guy? Excuse me, the guy that we saw before, just that card though.
Yeah, but this card has like you don't need that
Additional
many
3
creatures
power.
in there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This
I
card
guess
has
it does have
base
additional
stats.
3 power.
Yeah.
And it's a 2-drop.
Yeah.
And it's a
No,
2-drop.
I agree. It's just like you're gonna spend an extra card to give it haste. So I'm
Well, no,
trying to
yeah,
figure
but
out
I'm
that
saying like
bullshit.
if there's like becomes some creature, like if there's like down the line next set, if like there's some Gruul card that's like the Gruul Legend is really good and also just has text that says all your creatures gain haste,
Right.
like Samit did, from last format. Just
Right,
like some incidental haste. This is nice. Limited card's also quite good, obviously.
I mean,
Most of the time.
it's a better bear. I mean, it has
Yeah.
1 point of toughness or power on a bear.
Yeah.
I'm
and
still
a
only
keeper.
going to put it as a 3 because it trades. It just trades most of the time.
I mean, that's not necessarily true because I think a really highly played card in white is going to be the 1/1 flying lifelink bird thing. So I think this card just deals with that immediately, which is super sweet.
Yeah, if you can kill that before they mentor onto it or something, that's actually a pretty big game.
Yeah, I'm pretty high on this card. I think like this is the premium 2-drop that you want in all your green draft decks, and it's really good in constructed as well. So I think I'm gonna do like a 3.5 in limited and a 3 in constructed.
Okay.
I'm gonna be right back as well. So I'm sorry.
Might of the Masses. It's 1 green for an instant. It is an uncommon. Target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each creature you control. So this is just another pump spell that, we have not seen a high density of in this format. And this one's a pretty good one if you're going to be gumming up the ground, have a bunch of creatures just kind of laying about. Obviously really good in Selesnya, could be good in Golgari if your creatures survive and you're not trying to actively trade them. This card could just get in a lot of surprise damage, or even just, eat a creature in combat. And the fact that it's only 1 green means it's incredibly easy to hold up.
Yeah, so this card notably has been upshifted from common to uncommon, and I think that's correct because, especially as you've seen, like they've really pulled back the combat tricks. Like there's not a lot, and I think that's because combat tricks seem to be powerful because the creatures are so small.
Right.
So, and again, we've talked about green. Like Selesnya is like go wide, convoke, and Undergrowth is like wants you to play 18 whatever creatures.
Right.
So green is all about just like tons and tons of creatures.
Yeah.
So
would you ever
this card's what?
Would you ever attempt to splash this in like a Boros deck?
Again, I don't think Boros ever wants to splash really. Like I think your ideal like Boros is like the least likely guild to splash. Like I think Boros wants to just play like curve like 1 through 3 with like maybe a couple 4s, and just like doesn't really want to play gates because it doesn't want tap lands because it wants to play 1-drops.
Right.
Whereas like this card, whereas like I could see the splash being something like Abzan, where it's like Selesnya and Golgari, or like Sultai with Dimir and Golgari. And yeah, I don't really see Naya, and I also don't really see Jeskai because that's another Boros. Like I don't think Boros really wants to go in there.
Right.
So I don't think Sultai. Like I don't think you'd want to splash this card in Sultai.
Right. Yeah, because you probably have a huge density of creatures on the battlefield.
Yeah, Dimir is a lot of like non-creature spells.
Right.
But again, like this in Abzan, this in any like base green deck is going to be quite good. It's like very easy to get this to be like it's just going to be a removal spell a decent amount of the time, or like in Selesnya, if you just attack with 5 tokens and they let one through, you just like give it +5/+5 and just kill them.
Right. Well, what if you aren't strictly your picture perfect Boros deck? What if you have kind of a mismatch of the white cards from Selesnya and some of the white cards from
Boros?
Yes.
If your Boros deck has gone wrong, yeah. If your Boros deck has gone wrong and you're like splashing for green for some reason, again, I like pump spells with Mentor. Like again, I've noted that even the bad ones, like the +1/+1 in haste with Jumpstart, or the +1/+1 like flying with Jumpstart, like I like bad combat tricks even with with Mentor creatures specifically. So this is a good pump spell. So
yeah, this
I will play.
Giant Growth.
Yeah, it's Giant Growth most of the time, but like yeah, it's mostly gonna be, you want it to be like heavy green. This is not super splashable in like non-heavy green decks because again, I don't think Boros wants to splash, and Dimir doesn't really want this. But
yeah.
If your Boros deck goes wrong, again, I'm looking for any pump spell in my Boros deck because pump spells with Mentor are very good.
Very, very
Yeah,
good.
I mean, there's also Mentor cards in white, like just mono white, so that your Selesnya deck can have Mentor cards, and this card's gonna be very good with that. I mean, it's just also gonna be great in Selesnya in general because it has a go wide type of effect.
Yeah, we talked about how like both the green guilds are very creature centric. So
Yeah,
just
for sure.
There's a reason this got upshifted from common to uncommon.
Oh, it used to be a common.
Yes.
Gotcha.
So what kind of numbers do we have on this one?
I think it's a 3.5 maybe. Probably just a 3 in limited.
It's probably a 3. I could see it being a 3.5 just because if pump spells are at a premium because there's not that many of them, like there's just like a low amount of pump spells, you might have to end up taking this card higher than you think you would,
Right.
just because like there's like so few pump spells.
Right.
Yeah. No. On to No Hide Fairhawks. 2 green for a beast. It is a mythic. It is a 6/6. It has hexproof. It has, you can't cast non-creature spells. It has the activated ability 2. Nullhide Ferox loses all abilities until end of turn. Any player may activate this ability. And if a spell or ability an opponent controls causes you to discard Nullhide Ferox, put it onto the battlefield instead of putting it into your graveyard. So if your opponent casts a Nicol Bolas against you, and you have this card in your hand, you just pitch it, and you get a free 6/6.
With hexproof.
With
and
hexproof.
you can't cast non-creature spells and the other ability.
Sure, yeah, you get the card into play.
Yeah.
I have a question real quick, mostly for Ian, because I know you're like not the biggest fan of this card. Do you think this card's a 4 unlimited?
In limited?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think that you'd have to like pack one, pick this, and then dude, I don't know. This is it's so hard to evaluate this card in a limited context because I have no idea how detrimental paying 2 is going to be.
See,
So
I think that green you want to play like all the green, like Selesnya and Golgari, you want to play like 18 or whatever. Like you have no problem playing 20 creatures in those decks
That's fair.
anyway. So I think that this is really like because it's double green, like you're not really splashing this around, and this is like very clearly your green. So I think that this is just a 4 limited.
Oh yeah,
That's fair.
100%
Nah,
four.
I'm fine with giving it a 4. Like I think you're probably right that you're probably going to try to play as many creatures as possible anyways in your green decks. So.
But I want to talk about this card mostly in constructed, so I kind of wanted to get eliminated out of the way because
Yeah.
the constructed application of this card will makes it interesting.
Very interesting.
So this is obviously like mostly mono green Stompy. It's like the obvious home for this card.
Right.
Yep.
It lost Blossoming Defense and Heart of Kieran, which were 2 of like the only real non-creature spells it played. Like sometimes it played Commit to Memory or whatever, but like we've also lost that.
Right.
Yeah.
So there is a possibility that like you just don't play non-creature spells in Stompy now, and you play this, and there's just actual no downside to this card.
Some people are thinking that you play like a couple Assassin's Trophy and like a Golgari version and like a Vivian Reed. Like I know Todd Anderson played that in the Versus Live today, and he played Nullhide Ferox, and he was fine. It seemed fine him playing this card with the Assassin's Trophy and the one Vivian Reed. So you also have the option of like not playing this card if you have those things in hand.
Exactly. Yeah, that's actually the first list I built with like the first Stompy list was Assassin's Trophy, and I think I had Find Broker in it as well. But yeah, like
My
Assassin's
thing with
Trophy
this
just
card...
seems.
Sorry, you can go.
Assassin's Trophy just seems really good with Stompy because they kind of they don't want to play a lot of non-creature spells, so Assassin's Trophy being a like literal catch-all in every matchup is like kind of is kind of perfect because like they want to play an answer that answers anything but not a lot of it.
Yep. So all right, so I have my feelings about this card, and the biggest thing that I have doubt on this card being like the absolute nut is just because Vinemare is comparable to this card. Obviously, it doesn't have the text about discarding it, but it is a hexproof 5/3, so the power is there, and it's just Vinemare is better against black decks because the black creatures can't block it.
Yes.
So there is that. They cost the same amount of mana, so I do think that there is this competes with Vinemare, which is already in the sideboard in some main decks in Stompy. So, and I don't think that you can I don't think that it's possible to play like 4 of both. I mean, maybe there's a world that can happen, but I just don't think that's going to happen. One of the other nice things is that Vinemare survives Citywide Bust, but Nullhide Ferox dies to it. So that is a consideration. And I don't think that you want to like main deck Nullhide Ferox and then like sideboard into Vinemares. Like I feel like they just compete with the same spot. I don't think you can have 8 of them in your 75. I might be wrong, but I
don't think you can play 4 Vinemares in your sideboard, but I don't think it's impossible to sideboard like 2 or 3.
Yeah, I'm weary that you can't cast non-creature spells and the ability for opponents to just kill it because you can make it lose, like anyone can make it lose the ability, it's going to be less effective against control than Vinemare is. They both can get
Mhm.
counterspelled, so I think that Vine is probably still a little bit better against black decks, especially if like Dimir Splash X is going to be like a premier deck in the format.
Uh,
Is there a way to
so
donate this card to your opponent in standard?
Hmm.
no,
Oh,
I don't think so.
switcheroo.
Yes. Okay, switcheroo.
Switcheroo. All right, we're in there.
Get out of here.
I mean,
But I think the way to really abuse the activated ability of like 2, it loses all the abilities, and any player can activate it this turn. Is again kind of what Stompy wants to do, which is like you are an aggro deck. You're trying to kill them very quickly. Like
Yeah.
so you want to make the cost of paying 2 to be able to target this thing a real cost.
That's fair.
Instead of like
And the
just
other
whatever.
thing we mentioned in like a Stompy deck or some deck that has a very low number of non-creature spells, if your non-creature spells are things like Assassin's Trophy, if your opponent pays the 2 so they can cast non-creature spells, then you can start casting non-creature spells. So you can still play your Assassin's Trophy, and your opponent is the one turning off your Nullhide Ferox for you.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have a target for it that's worth it, and I think that really, if you play this card, I would probably end up playing 2 or more of the Assurance card, or whatever. I think it's Assurance and then something. I forget the exact. Hold on, let me.
I have thought about this card with like negate or something like that, where like your opponent pays the 2, right, and then they try to point a reversal at this, and you respond with like playing a protection spell because they turned it off.
Right. Yeah. So the card that I was talking about is it's a Celestia split card. Assure is the front half. It's 2 hybrid mana green white, and then you can put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, and they gain indestructible until end of turn, and it's an instant. So that can protect it. So it's kind of like if Blossoming Defense was still in the format, I think this card would be like the actual nut, because you can just Blossoming Defense when your opponent pays 2 and then targets it. So this kind of does that with being able to put a counter on it and make it indestructible. That being said, I have no idea if it's worth it to put this in your deck if you aren't actually playing white for Assemble, but maybe it is just worth it for Assure.
One real quick thing I want to mention before we move on from this card is in your comparison of this card with Vine, the 6 toughness. You mentioned it with Citywide Bust, which is a card that like I will not be surprised if it sees play. It's a I think it's a 3 mana Wrath. So and it's especially like
kill every green card ever.
Yeah, it's going to be specifically targeted at this deck for sure.
Yes, exactly.
But I think against like some of the against the red decks, they can block Vine much easier than they can block this thing.
Oh, I 100% agree that this card is better against red decks. This is why I'm saying that the way that I foresee this card getting played is that this one's either going to be it's either this or Vine in the main deck and the other one in the sideboard, because you're just going to like swap one out for the other depending on the matchup.
Yeah, I agree.
That's the way I look at it. I don't know if that's actually what's going to happen, and people might just play only this card and not Vine, and Vine goes away. But I mean, I've killed way too many people with Vine, specifically players that were playing black. That makes me like very weary that this card is just not good enough. Or not that it's not good enough, it's just not as good as Vine.
If people are playing black creature spells, Vine will have a home with a 75 somewhere.
Exactly, which everyone always plays black, because black's pretty much always been a very good standard
card. But I do think this card's better like as a main deck card. At least
that's fine. That's fine. So yeah, I mean, I guess our rating is probably like a 3 and a 3.5 for range.
Yep.
I think 3.5 for standard.
Yeah, probably.
I think it only goes in Stompy. Like I don't really think there's another list for it.
Yep.
Yep. Pax Favor. 2 and a green for an instant. It is a common. It has Convoke, and target creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn.
This card is so good.
Another pump spell that can sometimes be 100% free because of Convoke. You can actually, if you tap 3 creatures, the card is just completely free. So it can literally get you out of nowhere unless you're prepared for it.
This card is, I mean, besides obviously seeing the watermark, is very much a Celestia card. Also, Convoke being the Celestia mechanic, but it just works really well with the Vigilance creatures that are in Celestia. It's also a very, very good defensive card. Since your creatures are already untapped, you can block and then convoke once you're in blockers, once blockers have been declared. And it's oftentimes just going to be a mutagenic growth with an additional +1/+1.
Yeah, this card's quite good.
That also doesn't damage you. So it's just like
limited.
Yeah, in limited, yeah.
So
I think
guys-
this is probably this might actually be better than the +1/+1 for each creature you control.
I would not be shocked if that was the truth. Because this is always +3/+3 as well.
Yeah, it's guaranteed +3/+3. I know, especially in a Celestia deck, you're gonna play this over that one. I think.
Yeah, and I think like Might of the Masses being more than +3/+3 is like absolutely possible and like will happen, but it's not guaranteed.
Yeah, I mean, you can also just do like a split. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how many effects, like these kind of effects, you're gonna want.
Well, there's not that many
it's
pump
definitely
spells in the set, so I think it's hard to like have too many pump spells because it's just not that many.
Yeah, I mean, this is a common though. You're gonna see this multiple times.
I agree. I think I still have this as like a 2.5. Like,
I have it as a 3. I really just like the whole getcha thing of it being able to be cast for literally free once blockers have been declared. Just
Yeah,
really good.
do you guys know the card Gather Courage?
Yes.
Yeah, it's
I
plus,
don't know the card.
it's +2/+2 with Convoke for it's just 1 mana.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
was that
That
card
card
very
was-
good?
Yes. Card was very
Yeah.
good.
I'd assume it was because you just block and then blow them out. That's the thing with that card. It's like that was an uncommon, but this is a common. So this is your green opponents are going to have this a lot of times, and if they are sitting back with 3 creatures and no mana, you're always going to be afraid of this card.
Oh yeah, this card's going to terrify me. This is the card I'm going to be like, oh, I can just attack them, and then like I'm going to be like put my hands in my head and just be like, oh god, they have it.
No.
Yeah, I also love the flavor text of this, only because I'm very much a Celestia.
Yeah, you are
Person
very
in
much.
Lesnia grows its ranks in more ways than one.
And it's just a giant rabid dog.
I'm not sure if you guys have seen. There's an animated art for this too, and it's really cool.
Yeah.
I have not seen that. I'll have to look that up after this.
Yeah, I think it was like a Twitter ad or something.
So let's take a moment and pause for reflection. 2 and a green for an instant. It is a common. It has Convoke and prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. So it's a 3 mana fog that can also be a 0 mana fog.
Hashtag ban Nexus of Fate.
I think we should ban Nexus of Fate for an entirely different reason, but that's.
I think it should
that's
be
a
a
whole
Nexus of
nother-
Fate for like 6 different reasons, and I could like do a 3-hour-long podcast on all of them.
Yeah. Hey,
Padcast?
Yes, we might have to do a
I
pad.
love padcasts.
Yeah, we might have to do a
I do.
podcast when we pack the car in the Harvard yard.
This is pad racing.
This is pad. Now this is padcasting.
Oh my god.
So this is a sideboard card in limited.
100%.
So fog effects are. I think this card's actually worse because the fog effects, in general, have been good sideboard cards against decks that have a lot of pump spells, but I don't think there's a lot of pump spells in the set. This is a like good sideboard card though. If your opponent has the Bounty of Might, the triple +3/+3, this is like a great sideboard card for that card.
For sure.
But yeah, it's in like even against Mentor, like even against like the aggressive red-white deck, right? Where like, oh, it's like a fog to like buy me a turn. They're usually, even if they get an attack step in, they're usually pumping their guys, right? And then like you fog them, and then their guys just got better, and they're gonna make even better attack next turn.
Yep.
So I don't think this is even good against Boros. I think this card's like a 1.
Yep, that's exactly where I have it. As just a straight 1. I don't think it's good enough. All right, on to the real spice. Pelt
Real
Collect-
quick, constructed, this card might see play in Turbo Fog. If
That's
Turbo
it.
Fog, yeah.
I don't think that I would play that card in limited. By the way, I think it's like a 1 in limited.
No, yeah, that's what we said. We had it as a 1. It's like
Sorry.
unplayable.
Missed
Yeah.
that.
Turbo Fog. This is like there's only 2 fogs in standard. This is one of them. So, if Turbo Fog exists, they have to play this card
Yeah,
just-
I know.
because there's no other fogs. But it's 3 mana and it doesn't cycle. Kind of sucks.
Yeah, it's just always 3 mana because they play 0 creatures.
Yeah, exactly.
Pelt
Ooh, my boy
Collector.
Pelt Collector.
1 green for an elf warrior. It is a rare. It is a 1/1. And every time I read this card text, I swear there's more card text on it. So let's see if I discover anything new when I start reading this for you guys. Whenever another creature you control enters the battlefield or dies, if that creature's power is greater than Pelt Collector's, put a +1/+1 counter on Pelt Collector. As long as Pelt Collector has 3 or more +1/+1 counters on it, it has Trample. The first time I read this card, I did not realize it said or dies, and I was still incredibly high on this card. And then when I read the or dies part, my brain just like exploded. Because this card, I think, is going to be like a standard powerhouse. This card
So
is
this
nuts.
card is actually just 1 mana Tarmogoyf with Trample.
I mean, kind of. Not quite, but it is. It's Wild Mikado Experiment 1, whichever one you want to call it. Like, it's.
I think it's better than both of those.
So Experiment 1, it's interesting because like it's better and worse. The Regenerating Experiment 1 was like kind of nice.
I agree that is nice, but you get Trample, which is, I think.
No, yeah, and
nicer.
it grows from other things dying.
Well, yeah, it grows besides entering.
Yeah.
Which means that this card is actually not a bad top deck, which is really cool.
You know, this card is kind of like Tarmogoyf actually, because the flavor text of Tarmogoyf fits this card very well. Where it's like whatever. What was it?
Whatever dies feeds the.
No,
grave.
whatever doesn't grow dies, and whatever dies grows the Tarmogoyf.
Yep,
And it's like whatever dies grows the Pelt Collector.
it's true.
No.
As long as it's on your side of the battlefield.
I don't have this card. I don't think this card's a 4 unlimited, by the way. I think it's like a 3.5.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like
I
don't think it's like
it
a.
is a bit less good.
I don't think it's like a slam dunk bomb. I think it's a 4 constructed. To be fair,
Yeah.
like I think this goes in Stompy. This goes in like green white aggro. When Gruul comes out, oh my god, this card's gonna be disgusting.
Yeah, this is gonna be the girl card for sure.
Yeah.
Simic is inevitably a +1/+1 counter synergy theme.
Oh yeah,
It's gonna
I didn't even
be
think of that.
So sad. Like Pelt
Yeah,
Collectors.
when they like reprint Winding Constrictor as a green blue card, and you just like get to play Pelt Collector with it, and it's just like, ugh.
Yep.
Yeah.
Insane.
No, this card's
Dude,
great.
imagine this card with how would this
Constrictor?
actually? Yeah, how would this work with Constrictor?
You'd play this card on turn 1. Turn 2, you play Constrictor. This would be a 3/3. You attack for 3,
Wow.
Yeah.
Busted.
and then you'd play.
And then they bolt your Constrictor, and it becomes. Oh no, it doesn't.
No,
have
no,
power
no.
then
It's
anymore.
just power. It only checks power
Dang.
as well. Yeah.
And it has to be greater than, right? So it's not greater than or equal.
Yep.
Sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this card is great, and pretty much every green deck going forward. It can just grow. It can just outpace almost anything. You know, just having a curve where you play this on 1 and just keep going up. It's crazy. Your History of New Benalia triggers it.
It's just History of Benalia, man. There's no new.
Yeah.
It's just History of Benalia.
Oh,
It's the
that's
same
right.
old-
That's right. Yep, History of New Benalia. This card's great for that.
every time.
Yeah.
Shauna has also looked good in testing as like a green white like 2-drop that
Oh, yeah, this
helps
card's
grow
sweet with
this
Shauna.
when it enters and dies because Shauna just gets big.
Yeah, I think this card is definitely going to be one that you want to pay attention to and pick up at your pre-releases if people are just feeling, this card's not that great. Get them, like at any cost. Get them. Maybe not any cost.
Oh,
I mean, there's a cap, but get them because they are.
I did think I think I looked this up on Star City. I think this card was lower than I think it should have been.
Yeah, I think
but
we talked
I
about it the
don't
other
remember.
day. I can't remember the. Exact
I don't remember the
price,
exact costs. Yeah.
But yeah, if people are just sticking them into the backs of their trade lines or whatever, try to snipe them up.
This card's going to be a staple until it rotates.
Yep, get them early.
Yeah.
All right, ready for Portcullis Vine?
This card's
Portcullis Vine, a single green for a plant wall. It's a common. It is an 0/3. It has Defender, so good in the Arcades deck, the 5-color walls deck. 2 tap, sack a creature with Defender, draw a card. So if you cast this with Arcades out, you get to draw a card. Then later on, you can block, sack it, draw another card. And
You
that,
can sack your other creatures with Defender. You don't have to sack this.
yeah, just any creatures with Defender. And
Just
that
an
is
engine.
what I call value.
Card is
So
Garbo.
I think that. So I'm going to say my rating first because I'm going to talk good about this card, but I'm going to rate it as a 1.5.
Okay.
But so just so you know, I don't think this
Limited
card's
or
very
constructed.
yeah, unlimited. This card's not touching constructed.
I'm gonna put it at
Uh,
a 0 for both, and then I'll be right back.
All right. So the reason I think this card's like could be fine, I think Golgari decks will kind of want this card.
Oh, yeah.
It's a 1-drop. It's another creature. It will stem the bleeding for a short amount of time, but by the time your opponent gets to mentor the creatures over this card, then you can sack it to draw a card, and then it goes into the graveyard for your undergrowth stuff.
Yep.
So I think in Golgari, it's like fine. Again, 1.5. Like, it's not premium by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not unplayable.
Right. Healing Salve is, historically a very underpowered card, something you would never play. But the fact that this is a Healing Salve that can turn into a cantrip and fills up your graveyard for the Golgari decks, I think is going to be, you're probably going to want the first one in Golgari, but you're going to want to pick it, as your, 23rd card, maybe. I think it's going to be one of those, like, if you're a little short on playable, you'll play it as your 23rd, or, you can hold it up to maybe a 23rd, maybe a 24th, and kind of hold them side by side and see what you want more, depending on what you saw in your draft. But I also have it as a 1.5, but there are some decks that would not be ashamed to put this in their deck and play it.
This looks like an undergrowth enabler. It's like basically what this card looks like.
And it even has some overgrowth on it.
Exactly.
All right, Prey Upon. Reprint we've seen several times, this time with some cool new art. It's a single green for a sorcery. Target creature you controls fights target creature you don't control. If you have...
So we've seen a little bit so far, and we're going to see more as we keep going, but like the green creatures are significantly bigger than all the other colors,
for
right?
sure.
And if you are heavy green and you have like the 5-mana 4/4 or like the 4-mana XX, right, or whatever, and you just have you have the beef, this card's good.
Yep, it could be just a 1-mana kill a thing. It's also pretty cool in Golgari if you have a creature that's kind of on the battlefield and your opponent doesn't want to trade into it. You might can attack, and then your opponent's like, oh, I'll take 3 because that opens up for me to attack you with my 3-power mentor creature. Then after combat, you can just be like, okay, Prey Upon, I kill your 3/1. It kills my 3x as well, but later on when my undergrowth payoff starts showing up, that's actually good for me. So that way you snuck in 3 points of damage, you killed their creature, you are down a card on the exchange, but it might make up for itself with the undergrowth depending on what your payoffs are. Obviously that's not like the highest ceiling, that's not what you should strive for, but it's the line you could take. And I don't think you'd be unhappy in kind of that situation.
So I actually think Prey Upon's a little bit better in the set than it has been previously.
Mm-hmm.
Where like a normal set, I'd probably rate this as a 2.5. I think I'll rate this as a 3 in the set, mostly because the card that like really punishes Prey Upon are pump spells, right?
Right.
And not only, as we've mentioned numerous times, are there not a ton of pump spells, but in Boros, which is the deck that wants pump spells the most, they're going to be using them at sorcery speed a decent amount of time.
Correct.
Because they help bolster onto your mentor guys, where like they want to pre-combat main phase, pump their mentor guy, and then attack so they can mentor onto it. So there's going to be much less like holding up combat tricks to use as a trick than normal. So
and the red combat trick, Sure Strike, does pretty much nothing against this card. It may make your creatures trade instead of you just straight eating their creature, but then
it's still dangerous. Like, if you like, but if you have like a 2-power, like a 2/3 flyer, like if you have the 2/3 flyer mentor guy, right, and you're just like the ground's all mucked up and you're just like hitting them in the air, and you try to like prey upon your like 4/4 guy that's like bigger than everything else onto their flyer to like get rid of it, and they sure strike it and they 2-for-2 you. That's like not good for you.
That's
usually.
also that's true.
But again, I think that there's not a ton of combat tricks. A decent amount of them are sorcery speed, like the jumpstart ones are all sorcery speed. And I think this card's safer than it normally is. It's not card's still not 100% safe. Like this card still does open you up for 2-for-1s plenty of times,
Right.
but it's safer than it has been in the past.
Definitely. But yeah, I also have it as a 3 in this format. I think the card is good. All right, Siege Worm, 5 green for a worm. It's a common. It is a 5/5. It has Convoke and Trample. Why is this card Colossal Dreadmaw?
That's a good question. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little upset that they didn't reprint Colossal Dreadmaw.
Me too, man. I would have been so happy.
But this is just the like common Convoke big thing, right? Like in white, we saw like a 3/4 or whatever, which is like whatever. This is a 5/5 trample. It's so big.
Yep.
Again, if you get 3 creatures out, this goes from costing 7 to costing 4, which this card at 4 mana is nuts.
Yeah, I think you're even fine at 5 mana. 5 mana, 5.
Oh yeah, this card at 5 mana is very good.
Yeah.
Like,
so, I think this card is very playable in Selesnya. And again, if you see your kind of junker creatures maybe staying on the battlefield for a little bit longer, you may play it in Golgari, but probably not. But again, it really just depends on how your deck is. A lot of the Convoke creatures, like we've said multiple times, are good in those decks because you do just kind of vomit creatures onto the battlefield.
Yeah, I have this card as a 3. It's like the premium common Convoke threat.
Yep.
So
I've got it as like a 2.5. Similar reasons. I just, it just at the end of the day is a big dumb thing, and that kind of is what sometimes makes limited
it's
games.
So big
but
though.
Yeah, it is. It is super big.
Yeah.
Sprouting Renewal, 2 and a green for a sorcery. It's an uncommon. It has Convoke, and it's a modal spell, so you can choose one. You either get to create a 2/2 green and white elf knight creature token with vigilance, or destroy target artifact or enchantment. So this is just a sorcery speed naturalize with upside.
So I love this card. I love the design of this card. Because it's in limited. There's always been a problem of like, do I main deck my naturalize?
Right.
Where it's like it's always been kind of close, and
this card just answers that question for you, because if the naturalized side is dead, then you get a creature with vigilance, and as we've touched on before, vigilance is very good with Convoke because it can attack, and then after combat you can tap it to play some of your Convoke spells. And
exactly, but like the fact that this is a like main deckable, like you're never upset with this naturalize effect is I think I really hope they start doing this more often, even if they keep it uncommon. Like having these ways to answer artifacts and enchantments in the main deck without having to like risk like a crushing canopy we talked about earlier, like maybe main decking that and like risking that.
Right.
And I think it's fine to have it as like uncommon, as like a premium card that like you want to take highly, because like it's nice to have the optionality of it. So again, I only think this card's I think this card's probably like only a 2.5.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like a super high pick, but I just really like the design of this for limited.
I do as well.
I don't think it'll see playing constructed, but like maybe, like it doesn't have Convoke. So like if you're a dedicated Convoke deck, you might play this card over Naturalize in your sideboard. The problem is that if you're a Convoke deck, you're probably green-white, and Knight of Autumn is probably just better.
Definitely. There are a lot of answers in green to artifacts and enchantments, and you probably don't want to pay 3 mana or tap down 3 of your creatures just to get a 2/2 with vigilance. So it
like Knight of Autumn is just so good.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Cannot wait to get to Knight of Autumn.
Yeah.
Urban Utopia, 1 and a green for an enchantment aura. It's a common. Enchant land. When Urban Utopia enters the battlefield, draw a card. Enchanted land has tap. Add 1 mana of any color.
So yeah, we've seen green a couple spots where like green encourages fixing for like maybe splashing into other guilds. This is like the common way to do it. I think well, it's like I'll let you talk about this because I know you have it higher than me. There's no way you don't. So
Actually, I probably don't have it higher than you. I really liked things like Grow from the Ashes. I really liked things like Gift of Paradise, cards like that. But I just don't see myself taking 2 mana off to get this. I do like the fact that it draws you a card. That's kind of nice. So it does replace itself, but I don't know if this is the card. I don't know if I want to spend 2 mana to be able to splash something. The fact that I'm gonna get a guild gate, like I'm gonna open at least 3 guild gates that I could potentially first pick, not to mention any other ones if idiots are sitting next to me and pass me more guild gates. I don't know who on the earth would pass me more guild gates, but like I don't think Urban Utopia is actually where I want to be in this limited format. I know that's going to shock you. That being said, I probably still have it as like a 1.5 if I end up with a green X deck and I get super greedy with a splash and I don't get the on color gold gates for it. I might run some of these in attempt to splash that card, but then I'll probably face Boros round 1, lose O2, and then proceed to change my deck mid rounds and only side into my super greedy splash if I notice my opponent is a little bit slower, and if we're playing on more of a fair, more interactive magic field instead of me just getting attacked with junker 1/1 creatures, because that's not magic.
well, I'm going to disagree with you, and I think you're going to like this card more than you think you are.
Really?
Yeah. So this card is, it's hard to rate it because I think it's like a build around 2.5.
Okay.
Where like it's very obvious if you want this card. If you are just straight 2 colors, you will basically never play this card.
Right. Agreed.
But if you're splashing the 3, maybe even 4 colors, this card is like you need this card. Like it is from like a. It's not like nice to have it. It's like I need like a copy or 2 of this card.
Yeah.
So it draws you a card, which is very good for any card that says draw a card and does anything small. Very good. 2 mana, not that expensive. Again, you want to be splashing something that's really worth it, where like it does kind of help make up for the tempo loss. But the land taps for any color. It does not splat. It does not. It's not restrictive on your splash. It's not like taking an off-color guild gate where like, oh, this guild gate lets you splash a red card, where and then like I open a black card I want to splash. Like this just lets you splash anything.
Right. Yeah.
So taking this like.
Go ahead.
Yeah, taking this even like earlier, like if you took the explosion visitation card early, and you know you're going to be multiple colors, like, and you don't know which colors you're going to be or like how many, being able to take this kind of like in the dark because you know it's going to be good in your deck is kind of nice.
Yeah, that's very true. I also feel like this card may wheel more often than not. If people haven't really figured out the format, figured out that maybe that's something you actually want to do in this format, which is why I didn't rate it super high, mostly because I'm not going to be picking it super high. If it turns out there's just a junker pack and there's just some more commons in the pack, like things I'm just kind of meh on, I probably will take this for the potential higher than I would take just some common I may play. Then I can see you being right, but I probably, even though I love trying to make 4 or 5 color piles, I don't know how highly I'm going to take this, but we'll see how many I end up in my Moto collection at the end of this draft format.
Yeah, we'll see.
Probably going to be a lot more than I care to admit. Vigor Spore Worm. 5 and a green for a worm. It is a common. It is a 6/4, and it has undergrowth. When Vigor Spore Worm enters the battlefield, target creature gains Vigilance and gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard, and it can't be, or sorry, this card cannot be blocked by more than one creature. This is
I
just another big thing that can turn your small things into big things for a turn, and you don't even have to tap it to attack to try to, bash through for a couple more extra points of damage.
Yeah, this ETB is like surprisingly good to me. Like, I would not expect this card to be a common. Like, there's just like a couple things it seems like good for a common.
Yeah, there's
Like
a
at
lot
common, I would
going
expect
on.
this to be like a 7 mana, or like maybe the ability to be a little worse, or maybe this not be like a 6/4.
Maybe
But
it
like
doesn't have
it's,
the clause about only being able to be blocked by one creature.
I think that clause is basically irrelevant for the most part,
Okay.
um, because like I think this card's getting chump blocked most of the time anyway.
Yeah.
But because again, that ability of like giving something, even if it gives a +3/+3, if this is a 6 mana 6/4 that gives a creature +3/+3 until end of turn and
And vigilance.
vigilance,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
like it's pretty good.
yeah.
Like like this card is obviously Undergrowth and is a Golgari card, but like in the Selesnya deck, if you have a Mentor creature, like you could just like play this,
Oh yeah.
bump your Mentor creature and just like get in. That being said, it costs 6 mana, which is like a lot. It's
Yeah.
not nothing. Um, I do though think this card is like, I think this card's worse than the Convoke guy,
Mm-hmm.
but he's not that far off. Like I have this card as like a 2.5, maybe a 2.75.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. It's big.
Yeah, I had as a 2.5 as well. I mean, it's a big dumb thing that also can make your smaller creatures into a big dumb thing for a turn.
Mm.
Vivid Revival. 4 and a green for a sorcery. It's a rare. Return up to 3 multicolored cards from your graveyard to your hand. Exile Vivid Revival. I
Are you
love.
home?
Hmm?
Are you home? Are you home? You're Ravnica. You're home. You feel comfortable.
I do. I love this card. I have an obsession with multicolored cards. I love regrowth effects. I, but I can't get excited about this card. It's a 5 mana sorcery.
What?
I know, I know. I really can't get too excited about this card. It does. It mentions multicolored cards, which I adore. It rebuys things from my graveyard, which I adore. Uh, but I just 5 mana for a sorcery that just rebuys 3 things. I honestly can't really get behind this one.
All right, rate this card for me. I want to hear your rankings.
Um, in limited, you would have to be a super greedy, like the 5 color deck. But even then, I would have to see a limited deck that really wants this card. It would have to have a bunch of what's the card called? Swift Justice, Fiery Justice. It's neither of those. The Boros removal spell.
I think it's Justice Strike.
Justice Strike. There we go. What knew it was one of those two? It'd have to have a lot of those. It would just have to. It'd have to be able to rebuy a lot of very powerful cards for me to get excited about it. In constructed, I don't know. I'd much rather just play like Fine Broker or anything. I just can't see myself tapping out to rebuy 3 things. It does get back to Teferi, which I enjoy, but the fact that you have to spend 5 to rebuy your Teferi and then 5 to cast it again, it's 10 mana. Like, I don't know. I have it as like 1.5 in probably both. It'd have to be a very specific deck, and I don't get it. It doesn't do it for me. It doesn't rustle my
So I have
jewels.
this. All right, so let me give my ratings.
Yeah,
This is a 3.5 in limited.
3.5 in limited.
Yes.
Okay, Why is that?
There are a lot of multicolored cards.
There are a
I
lot of
think
multicolored cards. There's like 80 some odd multicolored
I
cards.
think this card is reasonable to play in a 2-color deck.
Okay.
Like I don't think it's that hard to have like 6 multicolored cards, and this just be like a 5-mana draw 3, which is really good and limited,
I mean,
especially in the green decks that want to stall up the ground.
yeah. If you have a ton of like Knight of Autumns, if you have just some of your great enter the battlefield, green creatures, then maybe I can get a little more excited for it.
Dude, I want to bring back my like 3-mana 3/3 common that gains 4 life, and like my uh like my random, I don't even know, like a 2/2, or like my guild mage, or like I don't even want to bring back anything huge. Like there's a convoke 4/4. Like I'm not trying to get greedy. If this gets back 3 spells, like it's really good. It doesn't really matter what the spells are.
Yeah.
In limited, at least.
Yeah. I guess I
Like
could be a little higher on it in limited in the right pool. I don't think I'm ever.
I'm gonna take this card pretty highly in draft, like fairly highly.
I hope that I don't have to first pick it. I would love to be wrong about this card. I would love to, play against this card, see my opponent get back 3 things, and then I just look at my hand and say, I can never win. I'm going to completely reevaluate this card. I hope that I lose enough to this card, or I just fall in love. But reading it, I'm not in love.
I think it's gonna happen. I think you're gonna play a game where you're both top decking, and they're gonna top deck this, get back like 3 gold cards, and then like a removal spell and 2 creatures, and just like kill your last guy, play 2 guys, and you should never win.
Yeah, yeah. I honestly, I hope I lose to it in that fashion. I would not mind burning some play points, losing to that, just to prove to myself that it is as good as you're describing it. I think I've just
Like I'm very okay
for
first picking this card. I'll probably take a like one of the super premium uncommons over it, but like just because there's like some restrictions, like you do want to have a decent amount of gold cards in your deck, but I don't think it's gonna be that hard. There's a lot of common gold cards. Yeah, I think this card's quite good, quite good and looted. I also think this card is playable and constructed.
Interesting. What kind of deck do you
So,
envision constructed?
So it's a sideboard card.
Okay.
This card is a sideboard card. So in a deck that is green and doesn't have access to Find Finality, I think it is the double Raised Dead in Golgari.
Yeah.
In a green deck that doesn't have access to that card, this is a good sideboard card. Like in Naya, or like maybe in Bant, if like going for like this is more maybe not right now, but like next set when we have like our mana is like fully unlocked and we have all the shock lands and everything.
Right.
In some Naya or Bant or like Rug, like Teamer deck or whatever, this is a sideboard 5 mana like mini Seasons Fast.
Yeah.
Like Restock was always close to being playable, but like not like just on the edge where like some decks played it sometimes, but like not always. And this is just like Restock, but it gets you 3 cards instead of 2.
Yeah.
For like the same mana. Like this guy, I think that like 5 mana draw 3, and like the 3 card you get to pick the 3 cards you get back, and they're all spells. Like
yeah, that is pretty powerful.
Like
yeah. I don't know.
So I'll put this card as right now I think it won't see play because I think that the decks that want this will have access to Find Finality, but I think when we get the rest of the shock lands next set, it'll go. So right now I'll put it as like a 1.5 or 2, but I think going forward it can go up to a 2, even 2.5. But it is just a sideboard card always.
Yeah. I mean, you had me when you started talking about Bant and Rug. Like as soon as you mentioned Teamer and
Dude,
Bant,
Rug
like, yeah.
to get back your expansion explosion with this card.
Oh my god. Okay. I'm now much higher on this card than I once was. You've got me tingling. You know how I said
This card's
that I
good.
just wasn't
I was like
feeling it?
shocked when you said you didn't like it. I was like, this card makes no sense. This card's so good, and
Yeah.
it says multicolor on it.
Yeah. I still don't know in limited how highly I'm going to pick it. I'm going to have to get a feel for the format a little more.
I hope you get beat
But
by it so it can just convince you.
yep,
That's like the
yep,
easiest way to get convinced by anything.
yeah,
It's how
yeah,
I thought Nezahal was like garbage until I got beat by it and it's like, okay, maybe it's fine.
yeah. And as I said, and I will happily say it again, if I get beat by this card, I am just going to accept it and embrace it and go with it. Because it does do everything I like in Magic. It just I don't know. I do like getting back Expansion Explosion. That's where I'm at. I do dig that. All right, Wary Okapi, Okapi, one of those two.
I have no idea.
2 and a green for a antelope. It's a common. It is a 3/2, and it has vigilance, which synergizes very, very well with Convoke, as we talked about. It is a 3/2. Much like in the red video, we said that a 2/3 is more valuable than a 3/2.
I think that was specifically for Boros though. Like, I don't know if that's the same for green.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna. This card's like really boring and just like super filler. Like,
Yep.
I'm gonna rate it a 2 because that's what it is.
Yep.
But to note, again, you said vigilance, which is good with Convoke. Also, it being a 3/2 is actually a little better for Golgari because it trades better.
Mm-hmm.
Which is like what you want to do on Golgari. You just want to trade, and then have like your undergrowth effects like take over.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's it. It works well with both the green guilds. It's just a whatever 3-drop.
And I have a feeling we're going to say pretty similar things about Wild Ceratok. It is a 4 mana, 3 and a green for a 4/3 common. It's a rhino. It has no text other than flavor text.
So I think this card's actually significantly better.
Really? Significantly
Yes.
better.
Yes. 4/3 is quite big in this format. Like 3/2 like trades with a lot of things, but like 4/3 just barrels through a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Really good with Prey Upon as well.
Yeah, like I think this card's a 2.5. I don't think it's like a bomb or anything,
Yeah.
but it's like 4 mana 4/3 has historically been like a big body in limited, and in this limited format where it looks like especially small, I'm going to expect a 4/3 to be like seen even larger than usual, which it usually seems quite large.
Yeah. You know, I don't think a 2 and a 2.5 is really significantly better. I was thinking that you were going to like throw out some kind of crazy like 3.5 number.
No.
And I was like, whoa. But,
No. I do think this card's more than just filler. Like I'm gonna like, whereas like the Okapi or whatever, I'm gonna take like picks like 9 through whatever. I'm gonna take this card like 4th, maybe even 3rd sometimes.
Yeah. I can see myself doing that as well. Yeah. So, there is actually one more card on the Wizard spoiler site. It goes a little out of order to the collector's number. On the Wizard site, it does prompt us to talk about Impervious Great Worm. Which is
that?
It is the Buy a Box promo.
Oh, okay. I was like,
Yeah.
It's not showing up for me on Skyfall. Okay,
Yeah.
we can talk about that for a little bit. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it is a green card. You will not find this card in booster packs. The only way to get it outside of buying it from your local game store, trading it with friends, buying a booster box, and getting this card as a perk for that. Those are the only
breaking
ways.
into WotC's printing facilities and just like stealing a cheap.
That's right. If you Ocean's 11 it, then maybe you can get it elsewhere. But this card is a mythic rare. Again, you will not find it in booster packs. It is 7 green. So 10 mana total. Almost said 9 because I can't count. It is a worm. It is a 16/16. It has Convoke, and it has Indestructible.
It's big.
Yeah, it
So,
is very big.
Obviously, we won't talk about this card for limited because if you play against this card in limited, if you're a comp RL, call a judge, and if you're not, knock off your opponent's deck and declare yourself the victor.
Yep.
So for constructed, this costs 10 mana. and is a 16/16, and it has
Bigger than
indestructible. And it is. Is it the new biggest, or is it the same as the stupid artifact creature?
I can't
What's the
remember.
dragon? Draco or whatever?
Oh, I don't think Draco is that big. I'll look it up. You can keep talking.
I think it's the 16/16. I think they're both
No,
16/16.
Draco is a 9/9. It costs 16, but it's just
Oh,
9/9.
is that what it is?
Yeah,
So is this like the biggest creature now?
I think so.
Okay, but anyway, it's huge. I guess technically like creature, like Merilage is like bigger than this.
Sure.
So,
That's a token. Doesn't count.
so this card is. I wouldn't be shocked if this card actually saw some play at some point.
Yeah.
In a dedicated like go wide Song of Fraley style deck as like a 1 or 2 of. It is a 16/16 and indestructible, and from what we saw from the Omega Gods, we know how good indestructible is.
Definitely.
Like even like there was a bunch of exile effects, and like things like Hazaret and like Ronus were still very good.
Oh yeah, and early on, weren't some control decks even playing Kefnet?
And some people tried Capnet.
Incredibly early on is what I mean.
Yeah, but like that was I think more of like people tried Bantu too. Like people tried Oketra. Like
Yeah.
but like people, it's very rare for people not to try a mythic. Like most people will try every mythic. It's not every mythic, but most mythics people will try. We'll give it a try just because it's like, oh, this card's a mythic, so like Wizards obviously thinks it's good, so let's find out if it's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, this card might show up. I don't think it'll be like this card's worse than Nexus of Fate. Nexus of Fate is like a real player in standard, and like will continue to see play. And like that was a mistake, obviously, with the buy box there. But like this one, I think is better. I have strong opinions on the buy box and everything, but I won't get into that here. I don't like it, but this card's like not. I don't see this card threatening standard in the same way Nexus of Fate did. I don't think this card will see play, but I think it's not impossible. Like it's not impossible for this card to see play in some like Song of Fraley's goes to the wide and like dump this big 16/16, or like even if they wrath you, now you have a 16/16, and like they can never. It's big. It's just guaranteed to be bigger than everything else, so it can block and attack or everything.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that actually wraps it up for green. Any kind of closing thoughts on green in limited or constructed?
Big boys.
Yep, big boys. They are beautiful.
If you don't get tempoed out, which like Boros and Izzet seem to be like pretty tempo oriented, green. If you survive, green has the beef, and will kill you.
Yep. Yep. So with that closes the set review on green. Our next video will be artifacts and lands. We're going to lump both of those together because there is a lower density of those. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tuning me out. If you like our content, please give it a like and hit that subscribe button if you're on YouTube. If you're watching on Twitch, thank you very much. Please click that like button there as well. If you're watching on Twitch, you can do the same thing for YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, please do the same thing for Twitch. Basically, the more ways I'm able to interact with you, the happier I am. The happier I am means the more content that I can produce for you. The happier you are, which means the happier I am. It just is a feeding cycle of happiness. We can just have a giant circle of happiness. Praise be to Quee, Owen Wilson, and Danny Trejo. Stay thirsty, my friends. Gotcha. But I mean, no decks exist. The format's not started yet. It's impossible.
Not true.
It's impossible to know what decks are decks.
Nah, just I'm not gonna go into it. But
all right, shouldn't feed the trolls this early in the podcast. Haven't even read the first card, and I'm already trying to start things.
we're not even getting gold today, so.